Arc, I would ask Robert O'Brien if he was available to join me. Robert O'Brien is the partner in charge of the Los Angeles office of Arent Fox, great global law firm, former foreign affairs official in the administration of George W. Bush, just named as a senior foreign policy advisor to Mitt Romney last week, and the co-chair of the International Organizations Study Group. Robert O'Brien, welcome back. Good to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Hugh.
Are you surprised by this news that Iran would seek to kill the Saudi ambassador on our soil?
I'm not surprised. What surprises me is that people continue to listen to rhetoric coming out of Tehran and discount it. The Iranians are quite forthright about what they intend to do, and they've said for years that they will they reserve the right to support terrorists with Hamas and Hezbollah, to support the murder of whether it's Israelis or Americans or Saudis. They certainly have a motivation to be upset with the Saudis. They tried to institute a coup in Bahrain. The Saudis sent in troops and put that down. So there's a regional rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran. There's a religious aspect to it between Sunnis and Shias. And the Iranians have been very robust in using the Revolutionary Guard and other surrogates to do their bidding and defeat their foes. I mean, we talked about the Navy, I think, the last time I was on the show, and last week the Iranians said that they were going to send an Iranian destroyer to go patrol the Atlantic seaboard of the United States. So we'll see if they do it, but they don't lack for ambition when it comes to these sorts of plots.
The New York Times account of this reads that details offered by the Justice Department, Robert C. O'Brien, painted a picture of a dizzying international plot involving Mexican drug cartels, murder for hire, and huge sums of money being transferred from unknown locations. And so it sounds like a Clancy novel or a Vince Flynn novel.
If you read Tom Clancy's last novel, that's the... it's like they read the novel and decided to do it themselves.
So what should the United States do in response if our senior foreign policy advisors tell the president that this is indeed what they were doing, this is indeed what they intended to do? What should the United States respond?
Well, it's incredibly serious, and there's some short-term and some longer-term responses. I mean, one of the things that this points out is that border security is a very important issue for the United States. It's just been ignored too long, and it's gotten caught up in the politics of Mexican immigration or Central American immigration. Whatever you think, excuse me, of the issue of illegals coming into the U.S., this shows us why we have to have control of our borders. Folks have been warning for a long time, both in and out of government, and even in popular novels, as you've discussed, that Iranians, jihadists, are going to take advantage of the porous borders of the South and potentially align with cartels or criminal elements and smuggle folks that want to do harm to us right into the U.S., and whether it's for assassinations or suicide bombings or, heaven forbid, something worse with a dirty bomb or something of that nature. So we've got to get a handle on our border security, and that's something that Governor Romney has spoken about throughout the campaign. It's something that's come up in the debates that he's made a point of in the debates, that we have to get control of that border with Mexico, and we need to do it working with our Mexican allies, as the governor pointed out in his speech at the Citadel last week. But we need to get proper fencing and enough border patrol agents down onto the border to make sure that whether it's the Iranians or Al-Qaeda or some other organization that wants to do harm to Americans or people living in the United States, whether in this case foreign ambassadors, and I don't think it was just the Saudi ambassador, it was the Israeli ambassador that they were targeting. We've got to get control of the border. Can
the use of force directly against Iran be ruled out at this point, Robert O'Brien?
Look, I don't think we can take that off the table, and that's something that Governor Romney has spoken about, extensively. When we take force off the table, it encourages this sort of behavior. American weakness is provocative, whether it's with the Iranians or the North Koreans or even with the Chinese or the Russians. When we show weakness, which seems to be, it's the old canard of the left, if we would just unilaterally disarm, if we would show people that we're weak, they'll take that into account, and they won't do us or our friends harm. What we know is when we show weakness, other countries and bad people that would like to do us harm will take advantage of our weakness. And so I don't think you can ever take military action off the table, especially with the Iranians.
I'm talking with Robert C. O'Brien, former an official at the United Nations, also now managing partner or partner in charge of the Los Angeles office of the international law firm Arent Fox. He's just been named by Mitt Romney last week, the co-chair of the International Organization Study Group for the Romney campaign. Turn into politics. Your assessment of the Christie endorsement and its significance, Robert O'Brien.
I think it's a big day. Governor Christie is a great governor. He's one of the most plain-spoken politicians that we have in the United States today. He's taken on the unions. He's taken on entitlements. People love Chris Christie. He's one of my favorite Republicans. And for him to come out so quickly after deciding himself not to run for office and endorse Mitt Romney, I don't think the significance of it can be overstated. I think sometimes endorsements are overstated, and we all get the emails from different candidates about the state senators and the folks in any given state that endorse a candidate and how that would be important in Iowa or New Hampshire. I think that Chris Christie's endorsement of Governor Romney is of national significance and will have a real impact in the campaign. Look, having Chris Christie out on the stump arguing for your candidate, I couldn't imagine having anyone better than that out making the case for Mitt Romney around the country. And I think he's going to resonate with Tea Party, with establishment Republicans, with conservatives. And Chris Christie gets the fact that we have to replace the current president in a little over a year. I mean, this country has to elect a Republican, and I think Governor Christie realizes that not only is Mitt Romney the person to defeat Barack Obama, but he's also got the intelligence and the life skills and experience to come into a very difficult situation and turn us around.
Now, I began the last hour with the Article 6 bloggers, which includes one of your colleagues, Lowell Brown, but John Mark Reynolds, John Schroeder, and we were talking about what's going to dominate, I think, tonight's debate, or at least until today, was going to be the Jeffress assault upon the LDS Church on Saturday. Now, William McGurn at the Wall Street Journal wrote an amazing column today called The Cult of Anti-Mormonism. What do you think Governor Perry ought to do? Governor Romney called on him to repudiate Pastor Jeffress. What do you think he should do? What do you think he will do tonight, Robert O'Brien?
You know, I don't know what Governor Perry is going to do, but I think he ought to take his cue card from Senator Santorum, who is a great guy. And Senator Santorum, a Catholic, came out and said, look, Mormons are Christian. They're among the most decent people I know. And I agree with him on almost everything, with the exception of Harry Reid. And so I think that Governor Perry needs to put this behind him. Look, he's got other problems that have surfaced on other issues, and some of these things may not be a big deal in Texas, but they're an issue when you know, at least among certain elements in Texas. But when you get out across the country and you want to run for president of the United States, you just can't have these kind of dog whistles to factions of the party, and I think he needs to repudiate Jeffries and come out and do it in a forthright fashion. I think if he does, I think the other candidates on stage, and I think most Republicans would accept that and move on, because we've got big issues.
Last question, Robert O'Brien. Mitt Romney at the Citadel this week talked about increasing American shipbuilding from 9 to 15 warships a year, getting up to 313 warships. Costs a lot of money. Any doubt in your mind he's serious about this?
Oh, he's absolutely serious about it. And this goes back to what I had mentioned earlier. Since the 1960s, we've heard it, Hugh, growing up back in the Reagan years, the left has always wanted to disarm the United States. They wanted to get rid of the Pentagon. They didn't believe in peace through strength. And all of a sudden, they've latched onto this idea that it would be fiscally responsible to eviscerate the United States military. I don't think that they're fiscal hawks. We could wipe out the entire defense budget. We could close the Pentagon, close down all our armed forces, and it wouldn't make a dent in the budget. We know what needs to be done with the budget, with entitlement reform and other issues. Defunding the Pentagon and letting the Navy turn into a Coast Guard with the threats that we're facing as a country is not the answer to the budget crisis. Mitt will restore the Navy to where it needs to be, and that'll be not only good for America and good for international trade and our economy, for our shipbuilders and the shipyards around the country. It'll be good for the world, because when there's a robust United States Navy out guarding the sea lanes, it promotes freedom and democracy and trade all over the world, and that's good for everyone.
Robert C. O'Brien, thank you for coming in on short notice. We'll continue to stay in touch as the campaign and